Good morning, everybody. We are here for the WordPress crash course. Sorry, we're about a minute late. We're having a little technical issue here. I have about 40 kids here using computers, so our stream is might be a little tiny bit laggy. So I apologize in advance because they're actually working on their own YouTube videos today. So this is our WordPress crash course. We try to run this every quarter or so. We're going to try to start running it a little bit more frequently, and I'll explain why that will be a little bit later. But first I want to introduce myself to you. I am Chrissy Ray. I was a zoologist at one point, and I am now a web developer and programmer. And I started Pongos Interactive in about 2008, but I've been doing the web development for a while before that, working for other people, working as a freelancer, and I've been working with WordPress for quite some time. In addition to Pongos Interactive, I also run the Pongos Learning Lab, which is why I have 40 kids here making YouTube videos. And we do a lot of STEM education, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math with those kids. All right, so we're going to jump right into the crash course because we really only have about an hour. This used to be a 2-hour crash course, but we're trying to whittle it down to an hour. So we're going to just kind of jump right into things. So first thing is, what is WordPress? Hopefully you already know what this is, but just in case you don't, we will go over that. So it is the most widely used content management system, or CMS, on the internet. And we got these stats. There are a lot of different places you could get them. But you can see on the W3 text, you've got this usage of content management systems. You can see that WordPress is pretty far and away the most widely used of all of them. There are other content management systems out there. There's Joomla and Drupal, which are also written with the same languages as WordPress. Shopify is also pretty popular. Squarespace, Wix, some of these you might have heard of. Now, some of these WordPress sites are very, very likely, you can see there's a lot of other little ones out here, but some of these are very likely, these 34.3% of all websites, probably WordPress sites that somebody went to WordPress.com, created a free account, and then never did anything with it again. So there is a good chance that that is where a good portion of these WordPress sites come from. But even if you discount that, there are still a lot of WordPress sites out there. It's pretty awesome and pretty widely used. Now, another part of why that is, another reason that WordPress is so widely used, it is open source and it's free. And by free, we don't mean it's free like you can not pay for it. It's free in the sense that it's free to run, study, modify, and you can also copy and redistribute it. So it's sort of like freedom of speech. Now, you can actually download a copy of WordPress from WordPress.org. So if we go to WordPress.org, you will see that there is a link to download a copy of it. You can get WordPress, and that is a free download. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there. There are people out there that will charge to install it for you. Hosting providers can charge you to run it on their system. So it's not necessarily free in the sense that everything related to WordPress is going to be absolutely free. Oops. Sorry, 1 second. All right. So when you want to get WordPress, you have quite a few options as far as hosting. This list that I have up on the screen is not exhaustive. There are lots and lots of options. These are options that many of our clients have used. WordPress.com, some people think of WordPress.com as the company behind WordPress. It kind of is and it kind of isn't. There's a company called Automatic. They are huge proponents of WordPress. They're big supporters of it. They do a lot of the active development on it. They run the WordPress.org site. They're very involved with WordPress, but they don't own WordPress, so to speak. But WordPress.com is a commercial WordPress hosting company. They do have a lot of free options. So if you go to WordPress.com and you take a look at their different options, you will see that they have, oops, go to the plans and pricing. They do have quite a few options available. So you can go with free, and it's good. I recommend starting with a free blog. It's really a really good way to learn how to use it. But they do have upgraded platforms or plans where you can get more features and functionality and nice add-ons for a modest fee. So you can see everywhere from $3 a month up to $45 a month. And based on the options that you get with those prices are pretty reasonable. One of the WordPress hosts that we use a lot when we're developing our sites for our clients is WP Engine. This one is on par with WordPress, I would say with WordPress hosting. We have used both. I prefer WordPress WP Engine. And just so you know, if you get the download of the PDF for the slideshow, that we do have links to all of these. They are affiliate links, so if you do purchase from one of the hosting providers, we might get a little bit of money back. But so if you look at the pricing for WP Engine, they have quite a few plans. They don't have a free option. They start at $35 a month. If you follow our link, you'll get some dollars off. So you can get anywhere from $35 without the discount up to $290 a month. These are really good if you have a more of a enterprise sort of site. WordPress.com does have VIP hosting, but it's extremely expensive. But if you're somebody like Time.com, you need to pay for that very expensive hosting. But if you're not Time.com and you want some pretty good near or enterprise level hosting, then WP Engine's a great option. Bluehost, DreamHost, and SiteGround are other options that we have available. We do have some clients that run on those. One thing to keep in mind when you're picking out your hosting is that some of the options, if you might find an option like on, for example, on Bluehost, I'm going to show you the WordPress hosting that they have, and then I'm going to show you the other hosting. So they have WordPress hosting, and you can see that they start at $3.95 a month for that. One thing you want to think about, if you're paying $3.95 a month, most likely it is going to be on a shared server. So if you go like to shared hosting on the Bluehost, we'll see what the prices are on there. So you can see that's $3.95 a month. So I'm not positive if this is the case because I haven't looked at it lately, but my guess is that if you're paying $3.95 a month for the WordPress hosting, it's probably shared hosting. And that means that you are sharing resources with other people on that same server. So that means if somebody's site is getting a huge amount of traffic, then it could slow your site down unintentionally. So just something to be aware of when you're looking at some of these hosting plans. So if it seems like the prices are really different, that could be part of it. The other thing to be aware of when you're looking at this hosting is sometimes they'll give a really low introductory price for the first month, and then after that, the prices go way up. So like if we look at, we're going to compare plans, and I look at the WordPress hosting here, you can see this is shared WordPress hosting. And so it's $3.95 a month, but it's normally going to be $7.99 a month. So it is a little bit more expensive, but again, it is going to be shared WordPress hosting. If you want something that's comparable to what you're getting at WP Engine, you would have to look at their WP Pro offering, and you can see those start at $19.95 a month. The normal price is $29.99 a month. So just you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples here. All right. Now, which one should you pick? I can't answer that for you. I mean, I could answer it for you, but if you want my help answering it, I would need to know what your budget is, how much traffic you expect. If it's a brand new site and you don't have any idea how much traffic to expect, we can help you estimate that. What kind of content you're going to share. If you want to be able to manage the server yourself, some people really want to, but if you're taking the WordPress crash course, you may not. That may not be your forte. So if you want to manage it or have someone manage it for you, if you want to actually plan to do the upgrade yourself, or if you want the hosting provider to do it for you. And then other things like, do you need direct access to your files or your database? Some hosting providers don't give that to you. You have to go through them to get to your files. Are you going to do backups? Some of the hosting providers do daily backups. Some of them you can schedule it even more often. Some of them do it on demand only. What are you going to do about security for both the server and the WordPress site? That's very, very important. One of the nice things about WordPress is that it is so widely used, but one of the bad things with that is that a lot of hackers are aware of it and they're going to try to hack it. So you do want to make sure that your site is as secure as possible. And some of the hosting providers have functionality installed on their server, and in some cases they've installed plugins for all of their hosted sites that are there to help you minimize any of the security issues. Are you planning to install plugins or themes? Some of the hosting providers will not support all plugins or themes, so you do need to make sure that, especially if you have a specific functionality in mind, that your hosting provider will support it. And then finally, do you need development and staging copies of your site? So in some cases, whatever you build in WordPress is going to be visible as soon as it's published. But in some of these hosting providers, you can actually create development copies of your live site, do all of your work on that, and then push that to your staging or your live. Now, installing WordPress is relatively easy to do. It is good to have a local installation on your computer for testing and for practice. I recommend using the Bitnami installer. So I'm going to just show you a link for that. So you can actually download it. I'm going to download it real quick. So you can see you don't have to sign in. You can just say no thanks, take me to download. And I'm going to save it on my desktop. All right, so it downloads it as an executable that you would then run on your computer. You can download it for Windows, you can download it for Mac, for Linux, up to you, whichever operating system you're using. So this will take a second to download. All right, and then you can run it. This is pretty easy to do. It's going to take a second to open. So it's got to verify it for me. So it'll take a second too. All right, almost there. Oops. All right, and then open up this other window that I'm going to pull over here. So all I really have to do is drag this WordPress app over to my applications folder. Make sure I copied it. Oh, already did. All right, so I'm going to replace what I already have in there. I'm reinstalling WordPress. It is a relatively large file. Let me show you. It's 593.6 megs, so it is relatively large. Make sure you've got enough room on your system to run it. So now if I go into my applications, which is opened on my other screen, so you won't be able to see it, I can then open up WordPress. So I'm going to run the WordPress app. Now, the WordPress app that's installed on your computer, it doesn't get published to the internet. It's actually a local copy on your computer. So it's running locally. It's only running on your computer. Only people who actually have access to your computer are going to see it. So let me close some of these windows that I've got open here. And I'm trying to open up the WordPress installer. It's going to take a second here. Sorry for the delay. Okay, bring this over here. So we can hit start. And if all goes well, I did have a previous version of WordPress on here, so it may not start for me, but that's okay. This is just to show you. You probably don't have a previous version on here, but I would start it up. You can see it's trying to start the WordPress stack, and then you could open up WordPress once it's running, and you can view your WordPress site. Oh, there we go, it started. Okay. So I can then go to the application, which should open up. It's not going to work right now. So it should open it up in the site. Like I said, I'm having some issues with my system today. I apologize. But normally it would open it up. I can also, I have websites that I created. So we use WP Engine, as I mentioned. So I'm actually going to, in another window, I'm going to sign into that to show you. So if your hosting provider does allow you to set up a staging site, development site, or anything like that, then you could use one of those to do your practice. So I'm signing in another window for my WP Engine account, so I don't have to share my password with you all. So give me 1 second here. Sorry, bear with me. I gotta get the password here. All right. Log it in. So I can bring this window over here for y'all to see. All right. So I'm in my Pongos account, and if I go to my sites, you'll be able to see that we have, these are our personal sites, our internal sites. And you can see that I have this Primate Project website. This is the one I was having trouble loading earlier, so I'm actually going to show you one of our other websites so you can see the back end stuff. But the Primate Project, notice that it's got these little arrows here. If you are working on WordPress sites in WP Engine, one of the nice features that they have is you can create a transferable site. So that means if you're working with a developer, they could start working on all of your stuff on WP Engine, and then they can transfer it to your account on WP Engine. So we have done that with a lot of our clients where we'll start off, they maybe haven't, they don't want to get their hosting until they're actually ready to go live or close to ready to go live. So we'll create a transferable site on our server, on our, sorry, not on our server, but on our account, and then we can transfer it over to them when they're ready to go live. So we've done that with a few of our clients. But the this website is a production website. I would show it to you right now, but I am having some trouble getting it to load. I don't know why. So instead, I'm actually going to log in to one of my sites, my pongos.com site, and I'm going to show you the back end of that. So normally I do this with a brand new fresh install, so you can see everything as it would look without all of the stuff that I've installed on it. But because I can't open that right now, I'm going to use this instead. Actually transfer this here. Okay, so this is the WordPress dashboard. Again, I've got a lot of stuff installed on here that you probably would not have installed on your default out-of-the-box WordPress installation. So just be aware that there's a lot more stuff in here than you would normally get. So when you go to your WordPress site, you are going to be using this dashboard. So if I look at this dashboard here, notice the URL is basically, it's my website /wp-admin. So if I open up in another tab, I open up pongos.com. This is the front end of my website, right here. And this is the back end of that website. Let me move my tabs close together so I can easily switch back and forth. So that's the back end. Excuse me. All right, so next thing we look at is our WordPress settings. This is something that I normally do after I've installed WordPress. There is a setting that, actually a couple of settings under the settings menu and then general. By default, The time zone is set to UTC 0. I usually like to set that to my current time zone, so I usually set that to New York, or I think it's UTC 6, minus 6. The other thing that I like to do, by default, they set the week to start on Monday. That will affect all of the calendars on your website. So if you have any calendars on your website, they're going to start on Monday, which to me looks a little weird. So I usually go through and I set the week to start on Sunday instead. So that's one of the things that I normally do as soon as I install a WordPress site, I go through and fix those couple of things. You also want to go through and make sure that the email address in there is your email address or your server administrator's email address. But other than that, the default settings are usually pretty good for a lot of websites. Not all of them, but a lot of websites. You do probably want to set the title and the tagline for your site as well. So depending on what theme you're using, those are going to look different ways. All right, now as far as WordPress content, there are several content types that you get in WordPress out of the box. And I say out of the box. Out of the box is a throwback to when you would get a box with a CD in it, and that's what you would install. I have a stack of them in my office, but I have no CD drive to install them with anymore. Everything is now installed digitally. So we just refer to it as out of the box. But when you install WordPress, the fresh, brand new install, you have posts, pages, media, and comments. Those are pretty much it. So you can see that I've added things like events, downloads, docs, features, projects, and some other content in here, some other types in here. Those are all add-ons. Those are all things that were additional in my installation of WordPress that I had to add on. But the content types that you start with, the posts and the pages, you can get away with using those for most of the content on your site. Now pages, let me bring up the slide for pages because you want to know. We'll start with pages first instead of posts. Pages are useful for what we call timeless information. So those are used to display content that's not associated with a date or a time. So there are things that are great for like your About page or Contact Us page. And you can see if we go to the Pongos website, if I go to Contact Us, this is a page. It doesn't have an expiration date on it. It's not timely information. If I go to About Us, again, this might get updated, but it's not, the actual date isn't really relevant to the content on this site, on this page. All right. Now pages also, they can be organized into a hierarchy of pages and subpages, and you can see that we do have that here. So you can see, for example, I have About Us, and then below that I have Staff, Partners, and Careers. And what that does is it actually will update your slugs, which are these little things right here on your URL. And so if I go to About Us Staff, you'll see that it adds a slash, and then it puts the slug for the second page after that. So this is really nice if you're into SEO, and if you're searching for content. If you have people searching for your content, it does allow them to peel back to the parent pages, which is pretty nice. Another thing about pages is that they can have different templates applied to them. This is dependent on the theme. So if I actually go into my About Us page, and I'm going to look at my About Us page here, you'll see that this page has content and a sidebar. And if I'm looking in the back end, if I scroll down, let's see, if I look at my document, I can define which template I want, if I want it to be the default template or a landing template. But I'm actually on the theme that I'm using. It's a really nice feature. I can also select a layout, and this again is dependent on the theme. So if I wanted to have no sidebar, the default is going to be content on the left, sidebar on the right. But if I didn't want to have the sidebar on a page, I could just select this other layout, and then I'm going to preview this because I don't want to save it. Let me save it. Actually, the theme settings aren't gonna let me preview, so let me update it. It's only gonna save the content. So now if I view it, you can see it's got no sidebar. Now because I'm logged in, if I want to edit this page, I want to make changes, I can click up here on this edit page button. Pretty easy to do. And that's going to take me into the page to edit it. And I can go back and I can change back to the default layout. And I'll update this in a minute because I also want to show you the content area. So in WordPress, if you're using the latest version of it, then they're using a new editor it's block-based. The new editor in WordPress is called Gutenberg. It is block-based. And so each of these chunks of content can be moved up or down within the page pretty easily. So if I want to change this heading, I want to move it up to before the paragraph, I can do that pretty easily. You can also move the paragraphs. There are lots of built-in block types. So if I was to add a new block, you can see that I've got a bunch of different block types. Paragraph and heading are pretty common list. You can add columns. I will show you a page where I have some columns added. You can also add, depending on what plugins you have installed, you can also have additional blocks. You can see here's a pretty good number of blocks that we have. There's some formatting blocks, layout elements where you can add columns. You can add buttons pretty easily, so I'll show you what that looks like. That's just going to add a button. You can easily add by clicking on that plus button, and then you can remove by clicking on this menu and then choosing remove block. So you will see that the text blocks, the paragraph blocks, they do have a sort of WYSIWYG editor at the top. So you can bold your text, italicize it. You can add links as needed. One of the nice things here is you can search. So if I wanted a link to my staff page, I could just type staff, and it's going to find my staff page, and it'll put the URL in for me. And then if I want to remove that link, I can simply select the text and then click on the button to remove the link. So you do have quite a few options. I do recommend going through, after you do your WordPress installation, going through and just trying all of these different options and just play around with it. Create a test site and play with it. Try everything. That's really the best way to learn it. A couple other things that I wanted to mention about pages is that there is this slug here. The slug, it's going to be unique within your site. So you can change it, but if there's already, so like if I change this to about, that probably would work. I'm going to leave it as about us, but if I already had another page that had the slug about, it would automatically add a 2 to the slug. So if you ever notice that you change your slug and it adds a 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that, then that's because that slug already exists. If you can't find the post or the page that already has that slug, look in the trash, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. All right, so let me go ahead and update this so I can show you a couple more things about pages. So if you ever want to add a new page, you can see that there's an add a new page button here. There's also, if you're logged into your dashboard, there's a plus sign at the top that says new next to it, and you can add a page from there as well. So I'm just going to go in one of those options, and I'm going to add a new page. It'll take a second here. So this is what it looks like when you first open it. So I'm going to add a second About Us page. And you can see I actually just pressed tab after I typed that in. And I'm going to type in some content. If you press enter, it'll automatically add a new paragraph. All right, so now if I go to my document and if I hit publish, I gotta hit it twice because it wants to make sure. Notice it added that -2 to the end. Now I already have my about page, so I don't really want this. This is a messed up page. So I'm going to go back into my document, and you will see here that there is a move to trash button. So I can click on that, and that's going to delete the page. So, but it doesn't actually delete it forever. It just puts it in this trash. So this is useful if you are working around with some things and you maybe wanted to edit it, but you're not sure. You can put them in the trash. You can restore things from trash, or you can delete them permanently, and that actually deletes it from the database, so it's gone forever if you delete it permanently. So just something to be aware of. Now also from this Pages screen, You can trash things from there directly, so if you need to go through and trash things directly. You can also select multiple items, and you can bulk move the trash if you need to. I'm not going to do that on these because I want to keep those. All right, now the next content type I want to cover is posts. Posts are going to be timely information, so we'll go back over to the slides for a second. Posts are going to be timely information associated with a date. If you are a blogger, raise your hand. Bloggers, this is going to be the bulk of your content. You're going to be posting your posts. These are your articles. These are your blog posts. One of the things that's nice about blog posts or posts in general is that you can apply taxonomies to them. That's really useful because you can categorize them, you can tag them. So it makes it easier for your users, your site visitors to actually find the content. I already mentioned the blocks because I kind of flip-flopped on pages and posts, but we are using blocks. If you already have an existing WordPress site, if it hasn't been updated in a while, you might still be using the old way of editing, which is now called the Classic Editor. If you absolutely loved the Classic Editor, you can still use that. There is actually a plugin for it. Just be aware that I have found that there's a conflict with that plugin and some other plugins. So we've run into some issues where having that plugin installed broke other functionality. So you may or may not want to use it. Just definitely test it if you do. All right, so if we look back at our dashboard, so right now I'm in my posts, and you can see I've got a bunch of drafts here. Haven't been published yet because we're working on a few different articles. So if I wanted to, I could add a new post. And I'm going to say for my title, okay, so my title is WordPress Crash Course, and I can add my content. This looks a lot like a page, and for a beginner, they're pretty hard to distinguish sometimes, but they are different. So you do want to make sure you can see I'm editing a post and not a page. So I'm under post here. So I'm going to say we're going to run another WordPress crash course in September. Now, if I look at my document settings, you can see that they are different from what I had for the page. So you can see I do have categories here. I don't have that template that I had for my page, but I do have categories. So I'm going to add this under news. I can also add tags. So if I want people to be able to find information by those tags, think of categories as sort of a table of contents. And think of tags as your index. So those are keywords in an index. Now, depending on the theme for both posts and pages, you can also add a featured image. So if I want to add a featured image, I'm just going to use this little picture here as my featured image. How that featured image is displayed is going to depend on your theme, and we will talk about themes in a few minutes. Now, I do want to mention that some of the stuff that I have in here, these theme SEO settings, some of the settings that you see in my dashboard are because I have specific themes or plugins available. So if your dashboard looks a little bit different from mine, that's why. Don't stress out about it. All right. So another thing that you can set in a post is an excerpt. And so this is like a custom crafted summary of what is in the post. So this is sometimes used in different themes as well. So I'm not going to use it right now. All right, so I'm going to publish it. Now, one thing I want to mention before I do publish it is, oh, did I hit publish accidentally? No, I did. Okay. One thing to remember, and this is valid for both posts and pages, is that you can choose to publish it immediately, or you could have it be published in the future or in the past. So if, for example, you wanted to have a post get published, you wanted to schedule your post, like you're going on vacation, and you've got like 5 or 6 posts that you want to schedule while you're on vacation so that your content is still coming even though you're on vacation and you're not sitting at a computer, you could do that. So if I wanted this to be published, I don't want to publish it right now, I want it to be published tomorrow, I could actually select that from this calendar, or I could publish it on Monday. It's a good day for that. I can pick what time I want it to be published as well. And you can see that when I do that, it's no longer set to post, it's set to schedule. Or sorry, it's no longer set to publish, it's set to schedule. So now I'm going to schedule this post. And if I wanted to, I can copy the link. And this is really just going to be so I can preview it. If I go to view it, I can see it. But if I actually go to my news and events, if I go to my blog, you can see it's not there. It's not going to be listed. So my last post that I have was from March 6th. I haven't been posting lately. We've been doing a lot with summer camp, so been a little busy. But you can see the last post is there. Now, if I go back to that post, and now I'm going to be editing the post. And if I set the time, the publish time, so if I change this to today, and now I hit publish, it's no longer schedule, it's now publish. Now when I go to my blog, so if I go to news and events, which is what we call our blog, you'll see that now that post has been published. Now I can see it. Now again, with your posts, you can move them to the trash. So if you accidentally publish something or somebody wrote something on your blog and you want to remove it, you can move it to the trash. Another thing you can do is you can make posts sticky. That way, by default, the posts are going to be displayed in chronological order with the most recent first. If you wanted something to kind of hop above those, you can make it sticky and move it to the very top. Just be aware that if you make a lot of posts sticky, then you're never going to see the chronological posts. So you want to be careful and make sure that you're only making like 1 or 2 posts sticky. It doesn't unstick them later on, so if you don't want it to be sticky anymore, then you're going to have to remove that. So if we go into our trash, you'll see there's my WordPress crash course. I am going to restore it because I do want to show you how to make something a draft. So if I restore that and I go back to all, it's currently published, but I don't want it to be published. I still need to work on this post. So instead of publishing it, I'm going to, oops. So I'm going to unpublish it, make it save, let me update that. All right, so now the other things that I can do with this, sorry, oops, clicking around here. So if I don't want to publish it, I can have it pending review. So I'm going to schedule it now. There we go. And that way it's going to be, editor has to review it before it will go live. Now, because I am an admin, I can't really schedule things for review because I'm an admin. Now, another thing that I could do if I went to add a new post, yeah. I can also make them private. So that's going to make it so that the post is going to be visible only to people who are logged into the site that are admins and editors. You can also password protect a post. The password is only for that particular post. It's not for other posts within the site, but you can password protect the content of a specific post. But the default is going to be public. Excuse me. So there are a few other settings in here. We've got our options. So if you want to say what's going to be displayed, what's not, you can. Lots of other settings in here. So again, like we did with the other, change this. I can save this as a draft. So if I wanted to make this a new post and then save it as a draft, I can. I don't know why it's not doing it. Oh, there we go. Save as draft. Yeah, might be having some issues with the system. That's okay. All right, so back to the slideshow. There we go. So a couple other things I wanted to talk about. This is really important, customizing the appearance of your site. So WordPress, as you saw, uses posts and pages. The content that I just added there, it's all stored in a MySQL database. So it's actually stored on a database server somewhere, probably supported by my hosting provider. And the content's not actually stored in any files or anything like that, unless I'm uploading files, in which case those files are saved on the system. But it's not saving the content as a file. So it's not creating an HTML file. It actually renders that HTML file, or it renders the HTML that's going to be sent to the browser on the fly, unless you're using caching, in which case it does keep a copy of it in memory. And a lot of WordPress sites are using caching, but it's not actually creating a file for it. So the appearance is actually handled with something called a theme, and that is a collection of templates that is made up of PHP, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and images. So you are keeping the content and the appearance separate. The nice thing about this is that you can easily change to a different theme if you want. So, and when you do that, then it should preserve most of your content. Not necessarily all of it, and we'll get into why it might not be all of it in a little bit. Now you've got two different types of themes, two different major types of themes. You have what are called community themes, and those are free. You can download them from within the WordPress dashboard, and you can install them on your WordPress site for free. You can do whatever you want with them. Some of those themes have premium upgrades where it'll give you more options and more settings that you can, more customizations that you can make if you pay for an upgrade. There's also commercial themes. That's what we're actually using on a lot of our sites is commercial themes, or we're creating sites from scratch. Sorry, creating themes from scratch where we're actually, we work with a designer and they give us the PSDs or their designs, and then we're actually going through and creating all of those HTML, PHP, CSS, and JavaScript code for that theme. Now the commercial themes are generally not free. You're paying for them. You can pay per theme in some cases, and in other cases you're going to join a club, and those clubs or memberships will give you access to all of the themes for that theme developer. So if we take a look, let me just go back in the dashboard again. So if you wanted to install a theme, you would go to the appearance menu, and then you would go to your themes. And you can see here we've got our, we're using a theme called Executive Pro, which is actually from Studio Press. So this is actually a child theme. We're using Executive Pro with a decent amount of customization in the CSS. If I wanted to add a new theme, I could click on Add New. And you can see these are a bunch of free themes that are available from WordPress.com. So if I wanted to install a theme, I would just find the theme that I wanted. You can search for themes by feature. So you could say maybe you want it to be accessibility ready. I'm going to apply that filter. So if you have you need to make it accessible, you can do that. Or if you wanted a theme that was specifically for e-commerce, you can apply multiple filters if you want. So I'm just going to find a theme that looks okay. Before I install it, I'm going to click on the details because I want to preview it. This one hasn't been rated yet, so you can look and see this is sort of some default content. Not going to install that one. Let's see. I'll try this one, details. Hasn't been rated either. So you can just get an idea of what your site would look like with this theme. Now I'm actually going to remove the filters. And I'm going to go to popular. So I can see what are the most popular themes. 2019 and 2017 came from the WordPress developers. This is a nice one, Lyrical. So I'm going to look at the details on there. And this looks a little bit better. So I'm going to install this theme. You can see there's an install button there. There's also, on this screen, there's also an install button there. Another nice feature that you have is you can preview it. So the screen that we saw before, and this screen here, it's a preview. It's not actually going to be your content in there. It's just going to be some default content so when you're previewing it. So I'm going to go ahead and install. It takes a minute. Now, just installing the theme does not affect the appearance of my website at all. It doesn't do anything to the appearance of my website. It's just adding the files to my server, but it's not applying those files to my site. So it's just doing the update. It's just adding the content. Now, when I've got it installed, I can now do a live preview instead of a preview. And this live preview actually puts my content in to the site, into that theme. So I can see what it would look like with my content as it is. So I would have to do some work to get this to look proper, to look correct, but you can see it used my menus. I can change which menus. So if I want header menu, I could change that to, oops, let's see. If I want my primary menu, I could make that main nav instead, and you can see that's going to change to my actual main nav. I can go through and I can change my colors, so I can, let's see, I can change the color palette around a bit. How this changes it, I'm not sure. I've never used this theme, but I can change what my buttons look like. So I want my buttons to be purple. Again, I don't know exactly. They do have color schemes here, so these settings are going to vary by theme. So you can see here I can change it to different color schemes. And you can see it's changing what this looks like. You want to make sure whatever color scheme you use has a lot of contrast. This does not. I can't really see the white on that turquoise background, but something like that has some pretty good contrast, so that might be a good one. Some other things that we can change with this particular theme are things like the fonts. And I can also change my widgets, which are little spaces in the site. So for example, I've got the sidebar. If I wanted to add a widget there, I could add an archives to that. Displays drop down. And you can see that added my archives there. So I'm going to delete that so it doesn't affect my existing site. Now if I thought, okay, I'm ready to go, this looks good, I can activate and publish this. You do need to activate it for it to affect your live site. I don't want to because that's going to mess up my whole live site, so I'm just going to close out of the screen and click OK. And now if I was to look at my site again, nothing's changed because I didn't activate it. But again, if you wanted to activate it and make it go live, you could. Now, if you get a commercial theme, and some great examples of commercial themes, so if we look at commercial themes, as you saw when I looked in the themes screen, we used StudioPress theme. StudioPress has got a lot of really good themes. If you are a WP Engine client, so if you're actually using WP Engine for your hosting, something to be aware of, StudioPress is owned by WP Engine, so they make all of their themes available to their customers. So you wouldn't have to pay extra for a StudioPress license to use it, unless you wanted to use the theme on another server. But they do have a pretty good number. Elegant themes, some of you might have heard of the Divi, which is it's both a theme and a framework, and it's also a page builder. It's got a lot of different things going on there, but they've got a lot of really nice themes there. So take a look real quick. This is Elegant Themes, and we've got lots of different plugins, or lots of different themes. They've got their nice layout library. There we go. It's going to take a second. So they've got lots of nice pre-built layouts that you can install. This loads. There we go. Lots of nice looking stuff. Another one that we use frequently is Woo Themes. So Woo Themes is owned by WooCommerce, which is owned by Automatic, which is the company that runs WordPress.com. So they also are the owners of WooCommerce, which is a very robust e-commerce system that you could use within WordPress. Now, if you wanted to install one of the themes that you download, so typically you're going to download the themes after you buy them. You're going to get a zip file, and then you're going to upload the theme. So you have to actually just upload it. So it's just a slightly different way of installing. But then again, you still have to activate it. Now, the settings that you get for the customizer are going to be different based on which theme you've got installed. So what you saw in that little demo might be completely different when you install your own theme. Just something to be aware of. All right. Now, visual page builders. I did mention Divi is a visual page builder. If you're not a developer and you really want to be able to have total control over your site, you might want to consider a visual page builder. These are things like Divi. There's some other ones like Beaver Builder, and there's another one called Elementor. Just something to be aware of, that these visual page builders, while they can make some really cool and really nice looking pages, they do tend to add more code to your pages. They add a lot more code in some cases, and they can slow down your site. So just something to be aware of. If you are using a page builder and you are seeing that your site has slowed down significantly, it could be because of the page builder. The way to get around that is to learn how to develop and customize your own themes, or work with a developer like us to customize the theme for you, to add that functionality without the extra code. Now, if you want to extend the functionality that you have in WordPress, so out of the box again, the core, you've got your posts and pages, you've got some comment functionality, which we don't go over in this crash course, but you've got a lot of pretty good functionality back in there, and you can do a lot more with the themes. But you might want to add more. So, for example, if you want to add a contact form, there's nothing built in for that. If you wanted to add e-commerce, you wanted to integrate with Salesforce or another system, that requires adding functionality. You don't want to do that to the WordPress core. You don't want to add the code to the WordPress core itself. So we're going to use things called plugins to extend that functionality. Like with the themes, there are community plugins. Those are free. You can download them from the WordPress site, and I'll show you how to do that to install them in the dashboard. And then there's also commercial plugins. So commercial plugins, we'll talk about that in just a second. But installing a community theme is pretty easy to do. Okay, let me just get out of the slideshow so we can go back into our dashboard. So if I go to my plugins, if I wanted to add a plugin, if I get to my plugin screen, I can add new. So I'm going to go in, add new. You can find the plugin that you want. And if it says activate, it's because you already have the plugin installed. I don't recommend just kind of willy-nilly going around and installing plugins. You want to make sure that you're installing them thoughtfully. Don't just install any plugin. If I go to recommended, these are plugins that are recommended on the plugins that I have installed and other users have installed. And you can see that some of these are not installed on here. So this particular site doesn't use WooCommerce because we're using a different system for our e-commerce. We're using something called Easy Digital Downloads for the e-commerce on this site. But we have WooCommerce on lots of other sites. But if I wanted to install just like a simple contact form, I could use Contact Form 7. Now, a few things I want you to do before you install any plugins at all. Look at the ratings. So look at the star ratings. If you've got 1 star, might not be a good thing to install. Look at how many people are using it. You can see this one's got over 5 million active installations. This one's got over 4 million. So that's a lot of active installations. And they've also got a lot of reviews. So that 5 stars is out of 3,400 reviews with 3 million activations. So that's pretty good. You also want to look at when it was last updated. You can see this was 22 hours ago. You want to make sure it hasn't been more than a year before they updated it. And you also want to make sure that it's compatible with your current version of WordPress. So you want to check all those things before you install something. When you're ready to install, then you would just click on Install Now, and it's actually going to do all of the work for you. Now, like the themes, it doesn't automatically turn the plugin on. It doesn't, the functionality doesn't go on until you activate it. So you have to actually go through and activate the plugin. So I'm not going to activate any of these right now. They're deactivated for reasons. So I'm not going to activate them. But if you activate it, it turns on the plugin within your site. Now you can install some really good commercial plugins. So we use Gravity Forms a lot. We also use on a lot of our e-commerce sites, we use WooCommerce extensions. There are a lot of extensions to WooCommerce. WooCommerce, again, is the, and actually we'll take a quick look at that. If you go to, sorry, oops, it was down there. Go to our recommended. If you look at the details for WooCommerce, it is the most popular e-commerce platform for WordPress. And but out of the box, it can do a pretty good amount of stuff, but it can't do some things that you might need to do. Like, for example, if you want to do bookings, you would have to add an extension. If you wanted to do things like take deposits, you would have to add an extension for that. So the WooCommerce extensions, if you go to woocommerce.com, and then you look at their extension store, you can see they have quite a few. So with something like WooCommerce extensions, you would, some of them are free, but some of them do cost some money. So if I go to, if I search for bookings, I know that's a pretty popular one, you can see that the WooCommerce bookings is $249. So you do have to pay for that. That's for a single site. If you are booking things, it's pretty useful. We use this on our Pongos Learning Lab site pretty extensively. Some other commercial plugins include things like, we actually have one that we use called Creator, and that one allows us to create custom post types in WordPress. So if you see things like projects, we actually created that custom post type so we can create our own portfolio. So you can see I've got my own content types, and it can also create additional taxonomies, categories, tags, and stuff like that. It can create custom fields for them, creates templates, all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. You can create queries with your site. All right. So installing the commercial plugins is pretty similar to how you did with the themes. You would actually go to that plugins page, you would click on Add New, and then you would upload the plugin. All right, so that is pretty much it for this crash course. I know it was a lot in just a little bit of time, so we couldn't really cover anything super in-depth. So if there were any topics in particular that you would like another maybe crash course, another 1-hour webinar on a specific topic, like if you want to talk more about themes or customizing or anything like that, let us know. You can just go to pongos.com and go to the contact page for that. We also do more in-depth WordPress training, so if there's a specific thing that you want to learn how to do that we can't really do in a webinar, our webinars have to be pretty general. So if you have something specific, like you need to know how to use a specific plugin to do a specific thing, let us know, and we might be able to do some one-on-one training for that. So I'm actually going to, real quick before we finish, I'm going to check the questions, see if there were any. I don't see any that were not answered in there. Let's just check. I don't see any questions. So hopefully this answered the basic stuff that you needed to know and will help you get started with your WordPress site. But if not, let us know. Thanks, everybody.